Rules of Passage, a Reddit horror story. My apartment was everything you'd expect from a guy who spent more time at work than home. The wallpaper was peeling, like old scars, and the carpet, once a bright blue, was now a dull, stained gray. There was a lingering smell of mildew, probably from the ancient plumbing my landlord refused to acknowledge. But it was mine, my little rundown escape from the chaos of the city. It was a hot Sunday afternoon, and the city was simmering. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, rubbing my jaw where a week's worth of stubble had grown in. My reflection stared back, tired and worn. I nudged the mirror to get a better angle, and it shifted slightly, revealing something wedged behind it, a scrap of yellowed paper. Curiosity got the better of me. I pried the mirror open, the metal hinges creaking in protest. Behind it was an envelope, thin, brittle, and yellowed with age. On the front, scrawled in hurried handwriting, were the words, "Rules of Passage." I frowned, wondering if it was some kind of joke. Maybe one of the guys from the precinct playing a prank. Still, I opened the envelope, expecting something ridiculous. Instead, I found a list of rules, and not the kind that made sense. Do not make eye contact. Do not speak to them. Never carry more than can fit in your pockets. Do not take what is not brought. Ignore all pleas for help. Do not eat or drink anything. Avoid the man in the conductor's uniform. Never go beyond the last platform. Never board the train. If you wish to leave, you must jump in front of the train. I read through the list twice, and then again. My first instinct was to laugh, thinking it was a bizarre joke. Maybe Rick was behind this, hoping I'd freak out and tell him. But as I stared at the paper, a strange unease crept in. The kind that settles in your gut when something isn't quite right. The practical part of me wanted to throw it away, but there was something off about the lack of dust behind the mirror, like someone had been here recently. The rules didn't make sense, but they had a weight to them, like some dark warning I couldn't quite shake. I tucked the letter into my jacket, planning to show it to Rick later. But when I looked back into the mirror, my reflection felt different, like the eyes staring back at me weren't entirely my own. Be careful, they seemed to whisper. A week passed, and I couldn't get the rules out of my head. It gnawed at me, even as I tried to brush it off. Finally, late one night, curiosity won. I went back to the bathroom, letter in hand, and carefully moved the mirror again. This time, instead of just the wall, there was an opening behind it. A dark, narrow tunnel that stretched into nothingness. I hesitated, flashlight in hand, but something inside me, that same nagging instinct that had saved me countless times on the job, urged me forward. The air was damp and cold, and the tunnel seemed to go on forever. I walked for what felt like miles until I reached a platform. A subway station, like something pulled straight from the 1940s. Everything was preserved in eerie detail. The old advertisements on the walls, the scent of smoke and wood, the echo of footsteps. And there were people, or something like people, moving about the platform. Dressed in clothes from another era, their faces blurred and indistinct, they carried on like I wasn't there. I remembered the rules, do not make eye contact. I kept my eyes low, watching them from the corners, careful not to stare. They didn't notice me, or maybe they didn't care. Either way, I moved cautiously, the flashlight beam shaking slightly in my hand. Then I saw him, the conductor, tall, his uniform spotless, his face etched with deep lines of anger. He was surveying the station, eyes sweeping across the passengers like a predator. I kept my distance, remembering the rule, avoid the man in the conductor's uniform. I couldn't stay long, the station felt like it was closing in on me, a suffocating pressure in the air. I knew it was time to leave, but as I turned to go, something caught my eye. Coins, scattered near the tracks. I hesitated, remembering another rule, do not take what is not dropped. These had been dropped, I pocketed them. The tunnel back was sealed, the path gone. Panic gripped me as I remembered the final rule. There was only one way out, jump in front of the train. I scanned the platform, and as a train barreled towards me, I leapt. I woke up on my bathroom floor, gasping, the coin still clutched in my fist. It was real, all of it, the tunnel, the station, the rules. And I had proof in my hand. That was just the beginning. The coins were worth a fortune, and I knew there was more waiting for me behind that mirror. The lure of wealth, of something beyond explanation, pulled me back. Again and again, I went through the tunnel, following the rules to the letter. I took only what was dropped, kept my head down, and avoided the conductor. My collection grew, and so did my recklessness. It wasn't long before Rick and Lucy noticed my sudden influx of cash, the way I was acting, distracted and distant. They confronted me, and despite every instinct telling me to keep it secret, I brought them in. They were stunned when they saw the tunnel. We walked through together, and I laid out the rules, but temptation is a funny thing. Lucy broke the rules. She took something, a necklace from one of the passengers, and that's when everything went to hell. The passengers turned, their faces twisted with anger, and the conductor's eyes locked onto us. Lucy screamed as they descended on her, their hands pulling her into the dark. Rick panicked and made the worst decision. He boarded the train. I jumped, made it back to my apartment, but Rick, he's gone, Lucy too. I still hear them in my dreams, their faces twisted in terror, calling for help I can't give. I haven't gone back since, but the mirror is still there. And sometimes, late at night, I hear a faint tapping from the other side. One quiet evening, as I sat at my kitchen table nursing a beer, a faint tapping sound pulled me from my thoughts. It was rhythmic, insistent. With a heavy heart, I stood and made my way to the bathroom. The sound grew louder as I approached. I reached out a trembling hand and took the mirror down once more, expecting to see the dark tunnel stretching out before me. Instead, there was only the wall, innocuous and taunting. I replaced the mirror, but as I turned to leave, a small envelope slid out from under the edge of the frame. I picked it up, the paper familiar yet ominously heavy in my hand. I tore it open and a single, folded piece of paper fell into my palm. Unfolding it, I read the new set of rules, my heart sinking with each word. Do not return for them, do not look for doors where there are none. The past cannot be saved, remember them as they were.